Okay, here we go. We've got a couple of people coming into attendance here. Welcome, John. So just going to ignore messages from Teddy or the group and whatnot. Just proceed with our study tonight. We're already 15 minutes late. Hopefully these other people have no problems joining. I have admitted them. Welcome to another edition of The Way of the Most High. Today we are going to be looking at Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 9. This is not as complicated as most people think it is. Number one, a lot of people think Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 9 is in the New Testament. So the first text that we're going to look at is Luke chapter 2. Luke chapter 2 says in verse 11, just give me a sec here to do some screen sharing. I always like to do this. It's much better for people watching the video to actually see for themselves. All right, so you guys should be able to be seeing Luke chapter 2, verse 11. For unto you is born this day in the city of David. How much of this corresponds to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6? I can tell you, not much. Basically 4 words. Sorry, 5. For unto you is born. That's the only similarity that we have between this text. And what I absolutely hate about the New Testament is that it will take a few words, half a sentence, maybe a full sentence, completely out of context, and then put it into something, maybe even combined with another text that has nothing to do with it, and then apply it to Yeshua or Jesus of the New Testament, to which it had nothing to do with in the first place. But if you have a common Christian Bible, and you're reading Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, a lot of the Bibles that you have, like the Companion Bible, written by E.W. Bullinger, or some kind of study Bible, it's going to tell you, oh, Luke chapter 2, verse 11. Well, we just read Luke chapter 2, verse 11. Let's see if it's actually found in Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6. So, nevertheless, is how it starts. We go to Isaiah chapter 9, the topic of our discussion tonight. I'm just going to use the KJV and change up a few things as I go. Point out some things. We're going to start getting into some deep stuff within the first 4 verses here. So I know everyone's focused and waiting for verse 6. Yeah, that's the one that nails it. But we're going to read in context. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as when was in her vexation, when at the first lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun, the land of Naphtali, and afterwards did grievously affect the way of the sea by the way of Yardan, of Galil, of the nations. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them has light shined. You have multiplied the nation. You have not increased, and not increased the joy before you, according to the joy in harvest, as you did rejoice when you divided the spoil. What in the world is Yeshua referring to in the New Testament in Luke chapter 2? When we're looking at this text, what is Yeshayahu, what is Isaiah referring to? So this, if you follow the text, divide the spoil. Where is this division of spoil or treasure? In context, we just have to turn over to chapter 10. Chapter 10 says, reading down into verse 5, O Assyrian, O Asher, the rod of my anger and the staff in their hand is my indignation. Verse 4, they'll bow down unto the prisoners, they shall fall unto the slain. His anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. And in verse 6, Isaiah 10, verse 6, I will send him against the hypocritical nation, which of course is Israel, against the people of my wrath. I'll give charge to take, to divide, shalal, the spoil, the treasures. The same word we saw in chapter 9, verse 3. So getting back to chapter 9, verse 3. We're talking about, in context, Assyria. We're going to get back to chapter 10, verse 5 again, because chapter 9 is constantly referring to chapter 10. And in chapter 10, he is very clear. So, but if you're not a person who's actually read these chapters, and you read the New Testament, the only thing that you're seeing is, for unto us a child is born, which is the only part that Luke chapter 2, verse 11 quotes from. All right, continuing on, we left off in verse 4 of chapter 9. For you have broken the yoke, the bondage of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of the oppressor, as in the day of Midian. Let's go back to chapter 10, verse 5 again. O Assyrian, the rod of my anger, O Asher, the rod of my anger, the staff in their hand of my wrath, my indignation. I'll send you against the hypocritical nation, against the people of my wrath, to divide the spoil and the prey, to tread down like the mire of the streets. Back to chapter 9, verse 6. Verse 4. So you can see here very clearly, Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 9, verse 4, is referring to the staff and the rod of the oppressor of Israel, the oppressor of the nation of the people of Yah. So Yah used Asher, the Assyrian people, as a rod and a staff, as an oppressor against his own people, against Israel or Israel, because they broke his commandments. Verse 5, for every battle of the warrior is confused, the garments rolled in blood. This shall be with burning and fuel of fire. Now we're getting into the punishment upon Asher or Assyria. So Yah used Asher, Assyria, to punish his people for their idolatry, their breaking of the commandments. And now he's bringing punishment back upon Asher, upon Assyria. And this is where we have the child that is born unto us, a son that is given, the government shall be upon his shoulder. And this is where we have the great divergence between a traditional Hebrew text prior to the New Testament, prior to any Christian Bible, and the actual Christian Bible. So in the Christian Bible it says, his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the mighty Elohim, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. In other words, the subject of whom this chapter is talking about, the child that is born. This is a regular person. The child that is born is now being called the mighty Elohim, the everlasting Father. This is utter blasphemy, and it's not true to the original Hebrew text. So if we read in the original text, and I'm going to have to take some time with you, especially those of you who are not acquainted with Aibreet Hebrew. So in the 6th verse, in the original, the Melektu, meaning of his kingdom, or from his kingdom. And it says Ata, which is addressed to you. It says Mishpet, meaning judgment and righteousness. So he shall rule in Tzedakah. Let's see here. You can see on the actual sharing of the screen, referring to his government upon his shoulder. I wish there was a way that I could get the Hebrew text on here in the original. And I'll just give me a sec here. I'll see if I can pull it up on memory, because it's not good enough that I just read it to you from my Tanakh, especially if people aren't seeing it. So do this a different way. Okay. Now I think we got it. I'll just have to screen share. And this is a great tool for those of you who are not aware of this. This is from a website called mechonmemre.org. You can look up any passage and it'll give you the Hebrew to English. So even if you don't have a hard copy like me, whether it's Stone Edition Tanakh or otherwise, you'll be able to pull this up for free on your internet in your spare time. So moving down to verse 6. Wa'al memlaktu, which is and upon, from his government. And we get to the mishpet, meaning judgment. This is that word there. He shall rule in judgment, which in English is translated as justice, and righteousness. So this is a person who is obviously in the position of king. This is not just Yeshua or Jesus going around performing a few miracles or something or other, as the New Testament makes it seem. You'll notice also the verse changing. If you're reading from a Tanakh, the verses are not going to be exactly lined up with the exact verses in the Christian Bible. So, ki is the word for. Yalad is born. Yalad lanu. Yalad lanu is being born unto you. Ben is the word for son. Natan lanu. Natan is the word for given. It's the word given there. Given unto you. I want to move forward into Wa Yikra. And this is where and called his name. Shemo is the word for his name. Yuites. And if I can somehow move this out of the way here, there we go. They've actually put it there in the text for you on this website, which is really cool. Yuites. Al-Gabur. Al-Gabur is a direct text related to Yah as a being of war. The word Al being mighty one, a person in the emphatic referring to Yah as Al, much like the same as Al Shaddai. In this case, we have Al-Gabur. So this word here, Al, meaning upon, Shikmu, upon his shoulder. And you shall call, and then called his name. So in terms of the subject is the child. The person that is calling his name as the Prince of Peace, which is how the verse ends, Shar Shalom, the person who is calling the Prince of Peace is right here. Yuites, Al-Gabur, Abi Ad. Abi is my father, and Ad is a time or a period that is allotted that is not known. So, in order to recap here, the government is given upon the shoulder of this child, and then called the name, that is the person that is calling him this name, Shir Shalom, the person that is calling the child this name is this. Yuites, Al-Gabur, Abiite. So these are definite terms that refer to the Father, the Most High, as the one who is a man of war and the one who is an everlasting Father. He is the one that is calling the name of the child, the Prince of Peace, Shar Shalom. Again, I realize that this is a very difficult thing for people who are not familiar with Hebrew to understand, but I want to give to you the actual reading from the Stone Edition Tanakh. So every Jewish person, anyone who owns an Old Testament, will most likely have a similar text. And I don't have this online. I'm sorry, I can't screen share this with you. I encourage you to get yourself a Stone Edition Tanakh, because then you can see for yourself where the Christian Bible has made changes to the text, how it differences. In this case, Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, I'm just going to read from the Stone Edition Tanakh. Verse 5. For a child has been born to us, a son has been given to us, and the dominion will rest on his shoulder. The wondrous advisor, the mighty Elohim, the everlasting Father, has called his name Sar Shalom, the Prince of Peace. Upon the one with the greatness and dominion and boundless peace that will prevail on the throne of David and his kingdom, to establish it and sustain it through justice and righteousness from now to everlasting. This is the zealousness of Yahweh, the ruler of hosts. In the Aibreet in Hebrew, we say, Yahweh Sabaoth. He will accomplish this. Now, staying within the context of the actual text. See if I can do this here. There we go. The government is increased, the peace is to no end upon the throne of Daud and his kingdom, to establish it, to uphold it through justice and righteousness. All that Yeshua or Jesus did was perform some miracles, and then he died on a cross. Everything else is supposedly future. He establishes a kingdom in the future. He gathers the tribes from exile in the future. This is what we are to believe. But this is a person who establishes justice and righteousness. Continuing on, Yahweh sent the word to Jacob, and it lighted upon Israel. All the people shall know, even Ephraim, unto the inhabitants of Shemaron, of Samaria, but stay in pride and arrogance of heart. The bricks are fallen, we build with hewn stones, sycamores cut down, cedars were put in their place. Therefore does Yahweh set the adversaries of Ratzin. Anyone who has read chapter 7 would know that this is the context of which chapter 9 is talking about. Chapter 7 says that two kings came against Akhez, or Ahaz, and he was worried. He was worried that Israel was going to be overthrown. And here we have a clear definition in verse 10, chapter 9, verse 10, that Yahweh is going to set upon high the adversaries of Ratzin against him and spur his enemies. Arameans on the east, and the Philistines on the west. They shall devour Yisrael with an open mouth, for his anger is not turned away, and his hand is outstretched still. So Yah is angry with his people. He's going to punish them. The whole point of chapter 9, verses 5 and 6, is that Yah is going to raise up a child that rules in righteousness and overthrows Ratzin. This is why context is important. We'll see that when we get to chapter 10. His hand is outstretched still, yet the people turn not to him. How typical is this of our human nature? That even though Yah humbles us with punishments, that the people turn not to him. Neither do they seek Yahweh of hosts. Therefore, Yahweh does cut off from Israel the head and the tail, palm and branch and rush in one day. The elder and the man of rank, he is the head. And the prophet that teaches lies, he is the tail. For they that lead this people cause them to err, they that are led of them are destroyed. Therefore Yahweh will have no joy in their young men, neither shall he have compassion on the fatherless or the widow, for everyone is unrighteous, an evildoer. Every mouth speaks wantonness. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burns as the fire, it devours the briars and thorns, yea, it kindles the thickets of the forest. They roll up upward in the thick clouds of smoke. Through the wrath of Yahweh of hosts is the land burnt up. We'll get to that in chapter 10. The people also are fuel of fire. So remember that before we get to chapter 10. The land is burnt up. The people are fuel of fire. One snatches on the right and is hungry, and he that eats on the left hand is not satisfied. They eat every one the flesh of his own arm. Cannibalism. This is what happens when you transgress against Yah and he punishes you and leaves you to the point where you commit cannibalism. Manasseh, Ephraim, Manasseh and Ephraim, they together are against Yehudah. For all this, his anger is not turned away, and his hand is outstretched still. Move on to chapter 10. Woe to those that decree unrighteous decrees, the writers that write iniquity, to turn aside the needy from judgment, to take away the rights of the poor of my people, that widows may be their spoil, that they may make the fatherless their prey. What will you do in the day of visitation, in the ruin which shall come from afar? To whom will you flee from help? Where will you leave your esteem? What will you do in the day of visitation? Verse 4. They can do nothing except crouch under the captives, fall under the slain. For all this, his anger is not turned away. Same as chapter 9. His hand is stretched out still. Again, verse 5, which is the reference that we have in chapter 9. O Asher, the rod of my anger, in whose hand is the staff of my indignation. I do send him against an unrighteous nation, against the people, my wrath. Do I give him charge to take spoil? Again, we read this in chapter 9, to divide the spoil, to take the prey and to tread them down like mire of the streets. Howbeit he means not so, nor does his heart think so, but it's in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few. He says, are not my princes, all of them kings? And we could continue reading on here, but it's going to be pointless. The point of chapter 9, which is the subject of our text. Again, Luke chapter 2, verse 11 takes this phrase, Ki yalad, yalad lanu. For unto us a child is born. That's it. So Yeshua, Jesus, is applied to these four Hebrew terms, and forget everything else. Forget about Asher, forget about Assyria, forget about the punishment upon Yisrael, forget about dividing the spoils, forget about the rod and staff of Asher. Let's just apply these four Hebrew words to Yeshua, Jesus, and say, number one, not only that it is like unto him, but that somehow he is the Prince of Peace. What did Yeshua, Jesus, do that is anything like Assyria with the rod and staff, or anything like the overthrow of Assyria in chapter 10? It makes no sense whatsoever. Yeshua, Jesus did not bring a new government. He did not establish justice and righteousness from henceforth unto forever. If he had, we wouldn't have the same wickedness that we have today. People committing child sacrifice, people committing human sacrifice, people committing Freemasonic rites, people oppressing us. We wouldn't have this. We wouldn't be teaching here on Zoom how to know Yah and the Torah, how to establish justice and righteousness properly according to the laws and commands of the Torah. No, this text, if you read it in context, it shows that Yah is angry with his people. He's punishing them through Asher or Assyria, and then he raises up a child that brings peace to Jerusalem, which historically speaking is Akhez, King Ahaz, King Chezkiyahu, King Hezekiah. Any commentary, even Christian Bibles, will put footnotes in there about chapter 10 and about Hezekiah. Well, let's go back to chapter 10 again. Get back down to verse 5. So we talked about dividing the spoil. Problem is the difference between a Christian Bible and the regular text. Sorry, I'm going to go back to chapter 9. Chapter 9, verse 4 talks about fuel for the fire. This is actually a reference to Sennacherib. Sennacherib was actually consumed by fire. He was overthrown. And continuing on in chapter 10, you see as well, strength of hand, these robbed treasures. Verse 15, sorry, chapter 10, verse 15. As if a rod should move them that lifts it up, or as if a staff should lift him up that is not wood. Therefore will Yah of hosts send among his fat ones leanness, and among his esteem there shall be kindled a burning, like the burning of fire. So, sorry, I had to remember where I was studying with regards to this and make sure that I get to it. But here you can see in chapter 10, verse 16, this is where Yah has provided the punishment upon Assyria. The light of Israel shall be for a fire, and his set apart one for a flame. Again, context is everything. It shall burn and devour his thorns and briars in one day. Did Yeshua or Jesus come with wrath and with fire? Is he the Prince of Peace? We're told that he's supposed to do that in the future. In fact, Revelation steals a lot of these motifs. But in fact, the remnant shall return of Yaakov unto the mighty, meaning unto Yah. For though thy people, O Yeshua, be as the sand of the sea, only a remnant shall return. All right, finally.
Yeah, that was weird. Why does it keep doing that?
Well, it's just they're only going to give you 40 minutes per session now. I guess my free trial has expired, so they let you do like 2 hours or however long you want during the trial, and then after that you got to pay if you want more than 40 minutes. So
that sucks. What other options do we have as far as platforms?
Well, honestly, I think this is the best platform. I just don't know how much it's going to cost us, and if we can all pitch in together, or what. We'll have to talk about that in the future. But let's get back to Isaiah chapter 10, because again, this idea of a child being born and establishing justice and righteousness has to do with chapter 10. No different than Isaiah chapter 7 has to do with chapter 8. You know, clearly chapter 7 is talking about two kings coming against Akhez or Ahaz, and he's afraid. And then he has two children that are born, that are signs to him that by the time that they're old enough to know right from wrong, that the two kings that were coming against him would be gone. So let's get back to chapter 10 here. And not sure exactly where we want to start. So we don't want to take too much time on this, but okay, we'll start in verse 16. I think verse 16 is really Just admitting some people. Okay, Isaiah 10:16. Therefore shall the sovereign of hosts, send amongst his fat ones leanness, and under his esteem shall he kindle a burning, like the burning of fire. We've already talked about this in chapter 9. So we've got the rod, the staff, Assyria, and fire. These are constant themes throughout chapter 9 and 10. The light of Israel shall be for a fire, and the set apart one for a flame shall burn and devour his thorns. Verse 18, shall consume the esteem of the forest, the fruitful field, both body and soul. They shall be as a standard bearer that faints. The rest of the trees of the forest shall be few, but a child may write of them. It shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel that are escaped from the house of Jacob will no more again stay upon him that smote him, but stay upon Yahweh, the mighty one, the set apart one, of Israel in truth. The remnant will return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto, and here's that phrase again, lo and behold, verse 21, Al Gibur. So pay attention. Let's I want people to actually see this in the text because you're reading it in the English, you don't see it. See if I can pull up here. Shouldn't have used the key sword. I should have used this Makon Mamre in the first place. But down. All right. So the set apart one of Israel, Kadosh Yisrael, the one who is in truth, the Amet. So remnant returns unto, verse 21, Al Gibur, the mighty one of war. Again, this is very specific to the Father, the Most High. This is not a term that a regular person would be using. You wouldn't say that Moshe and Moses was Al Gibur. You just wouldn't do that. That's blasphemy. So to say that Yeshayahu, Isaiah 9, verse 5, is referring to a regular person as Al Gibur is clearly understood to be blasphemy. This is why I think Luke was careful to just quote the first words, Yilad Lanu, meaning a child is born unto us. He didn't want to get into blasphemy. But this is what Christian theology is based on. So, you will return, O Yisrael, as the sand of the sea, only a remnant shall return. And we've got the rod and the staff again in verse 24. Asher, be not afraid of Asher, Assyria. Do not be afraid of Asher or Assyria. So Yah is angry with his people. He strikes them with the rod and the staff of Asher, but yet they're not to be afraid of Asher. For yet a very little while, and the indignation, my anger, will be accomplished. So Yah's anger does not last forever. His anger didn't last up until Yeshua or Jesus. Yahweh of hosts will stir up against him a scourge, a plague, as like the slaughter of Midian at the rock of Horeb. As his rod was over the sea, this is referring to the Exodus, so shall he lift it up in like manner after the manner of Mitzrayim or Egypt. It shall come to pass in that day that his burden shall depart from off your shoulder, his yoke from off your neck. Again, we're talking about Assyria. And the yoke shall be destroyed by reason of your fatness. Did Yeshua or Jesus ever relieve anybody from any real burden or yoke? It's still on us. They tax us. They take away our rights. They tell us what to do at every side. They force vaccinations in some countries, as they're doing now. The yoke is not taken from us, but in context, in Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 9 and 10, the burden was relieved. Yah eventually did relieve them from the burden of Asher or Assyria. So he continues on talking with these various songs. He comes to move this over here. He comes to he passes through Nikarun. They go over the pass, they lodge at moving things. Goodbye. Gam Beit Ayin. Cry aloud with a shrill voice, O daughter, hearken. Talks about mad flight. The inhabitants of the Gabim, you can see here in the Hebrew, they flee to cover. This very day, they will be stopped. And we've got reference to Jerusalem. So behold, the Adon, the ruler, Adon, Yahweh is his name, praise be his name. Yahweh Sabaoth, Yahweh of hosts. He will chop down the boughs with terror, and the high ones of stature shall be hewn down, and the lofty shall be laid low. He will cut down the thickets of the forest with iron, and finally, last but not least, this is your prefix, wa, which is and. This letter here, the hey, is ha for the, and Lebanon. Lebanon shall fall by the mighty one. So I hope that we've kept things in context. I hope that this screen sharing has helped you. I hope that this website helps you, Makon Mamre. If you're ever reading a text for yourself and you don't have the actual printed form in book form, well, look it up online. This is a great text to give you any chapter in the original. You look it up for yourself. And then if you're not so fluent in Hebrew, you can look at the text and you can check from your eSword. Okay, what word am I looking for? So for example, Isaiah 10, we'll just go with the last one. We're looking for this word, Lebanon. We'll see, there it is. Now you can ask yourself, is this an accurate translation? Did they keep the word order right? We have and the Lebanon. So you can directly see if people have been changing things around, if they've been monkeying with the text. Clearly, I showed you guys that chapter 9, verse 5, they changed the word order. And they made it seem like the child is being called the wonderful, the mighty, mighty one, the everlasting Father. When in fact, it's his name, the one that's calling him that, is the subject of the text. So I hope that that's helped, and I will stop my screen sharing here. And maybe we can take this further if there's questions or comments.
Show, we got somebody trying to come in.
Shalom, shalom, brothers and sisters. Peace and blessings. I can't hear you, brother.
Oh yeah, I had my
Show,
stuff.
we can't hear you.
Thanks. I hope that I was clear enough in terms of context. You can't take chapter 9 without chapter 7. You can't take chapter 9 without chapter 10. In chapter 7, we've got two kings that are coming up against Akhez or Ahaz. And Yeshayahu, Isaiah, has two children that are born to him. And by the time those two children are old enough to know right from wrong, we're told that those two kings would be destroyed. In chapter 9, we've got much the same thing. That a child is born that is given government who will eventually punish Asher or Assyria. So Yah is angry with his people. He punishes them with the rod and staff of Asher. And then later on, he punishes Asher or Assyria for punishing his people. It's kind of the same thing as the Exodus story, really, if you think about it. Yah punished his people through Mitzrayim or Egypt, through bondage and slavery and hard labor and punishment, killing the firstborn. And later on, he brings plagues and punishments upon Mitzrayim or Egypt. Kind of the same thing. Did Yeshua or Jesus ever do anything in terms of prophetic prophecy? I have yet to see this. As I've shown you from Yeshayahu, Isaiah 9 verse 5 in the Hebrew, or 9 verse 6 in a Christian Bible, it says, "For unto us a son is born." That's all that Luke chapter 2 verse 11 quotes. How can you take 4 Hebrew words out of an entire 4-chapter prophecy from Isaiah chapter 7 through to chapter 11 and say that this somehow applies to Yeshua or Jesus without addressing any kind of context? And in fact, Yeshua or Jesus never fulfills anything pertaining to those chapters. I will wait forever and ever for that answer because I know it won't be coming.
Just like Jesus.
Well, this is the thing, is that we are asked to believe that Yeshua or Jesus is Messiah now, when meanwhile all of the things that he was supposed to do in terms of significant events, in terms of prophecy, are supposedly future.
Yeah.
And that's wrong, because Yah says that we should wait to see whether what the prophet has said comes to pass, whether it's according to his Torah or not. Again, I'll ask if you guys have any questions with regards to these 2 chapters, because it wasn't just...
Yeah, Show, there's somebody trying to come in.
Not receiving any... Oh, there we go. Thank you for pointing that out.
Mm-hmm.
Shalom. Yeah, you're
Shalom, sister.
free to speak. We've been looking at chapter 9 and 10 of Yeshayahu, Isaiah, and I will be posting these videos. Hopefully I can just combine the 2 into one. It's fine with me. On these chapters. It starts out in chapter 7.
Yes.
Then, yeah. In the meantime, before we conclude our recording. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about or ask? No?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to watch the recording on it. But it seemed like a pretty good video that I gotta watch again.
Right on it. And hopefully people learn how to study the Hebrew. I really don't think it's that hard, even if you're not fluent. Like I said, if you use the Macron Mamre website and you compare it to an eSword on your computer, you can see whether, are they changing the word order? Are they changing the subject? You know,
Yeah.
are they monkeying with the text? And it's sad, but that's part of the problem, is that the text has been monked with in terms of Christian understanding. When you compare a Christian Bible to a stone edition Tanakh, and so on and so forth. So it definitely is important that people learn how to do these things for themselves. In future meetings, I will be teaching people letter by letter, word by word, how to read this for themselves.
Yeah, brother. When do you think you have one set up, or you still trying to plan a date to get one class set up like that?
Yeah, I've got a lot of things going on in my life right now. I've been pretty steady with these meetings so far, I think, but tomorrow for sure, I'm going to take a break. I'm not going to be on my computer at all. The day after that, I am very interested. Mitch, you said you'd like to give your testimony, and I want to have videos of people's testimonies about how they came to knowledge of beyond the Torah. I just think it's interesting. It's something I'd like to add to my channel. So we'll start that with you, Mitch, tomorrow. Tomorrow if you're interested.
Yeah. Tomorrow about this time in the evening will be fine if you got time at this time.
Right on. I have a testimony from a man named Yaron. You don't have him on your Facebook account. He's a good guy to add. Yaron, Yaron Ben Israel. He'll be sharing with me. On the 15th, I have scheduled a debate with Nick Johnson as to whether Jesus is the Messiah. Who knows where that's gonna go. And that's the end of what I've got scheduled so far. So up until the 15th, we're pretty much booked. But after that, if you guys want to start scheduling things, we can do that, because what I should be doing is posting a calendar on my profile as to what meetings are happening, what the subjects are, that kind of stuff, if I'm going to continue this way. So it's been going pretty good so far. And yeah.
Love your shirt, Mitch.
Thank you. Hallelujah. All praise to the Father. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Is this lady, are you a part of our group now in terms of the Facebook group that was there, or are you a friend of Australia?
A friend of Estrella. Yeah, she just sent me. We just got off of another Zoom Sabbath meeting, and we were praising the Father, and then all of a sudden my chat went off, and another invite came, and I'm like, oh yeah, good.
Glad you could join us.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you, sis. And Mitch, you're the same Mitch, right? That you and I used to go to Sprouts together. Get the free food from the brother and sister in Albuquerque, or you're not the same? Because you look like.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Terry and Davey.
Oh wow! You guys,
Yeah.
hey, you guys look different.
Yeah, so do you. You look different, Mitch. But I'm so sorry about your dad passing away. He was a sweet gentleman. I really enjoyed meeting him when I got a chance to.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And you're going to see him again in the future.
Hallelujah. Are you
Yeah.
guys still in Albuquerque?
Yeah, we just bought some property in the mountains. So we want to
Okay.
say thank you. Thank you for offering us your trailer in it was not Estancia, it was you had a,
Macintosh.
right, yeah. But we were looking for the mountains, but thank you for thinking about us. Did you get a chance to sell it to somebody?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Praise the Most High. I did last month.
Great. Praise the Most High. I want to order some shirts and hats from you, Mitch. So yeah.
Yes, since now you're local with me, just let me know when you're ready. If you still have my number, call me and we can set up a date to get you guys some shirts.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Mitch.
I just assumed that Mitch got his apparel from somewhere else.
No, he prints them.
Come on. Didn't tell me this.
Yeah, no, me and another sister, we started making shirts and selling them about a year ago. I opened a store, a small store, an Etsy, but I didn't know how to operate it correctly. So by word of mouth.
Well, when you do have the links, let me know. I'll definitely put a link on my website, and we can talk about that in video or whatever and so forth.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I just made this one a few days ago.
Love it. Yeah, straight at it. Oh, love it. Love it. That's a shirt.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
I want a baseball cap with Yod Hey Vav Hey in paleo, like it's on your shirt.
Okay, yeah. Just get with me, and then we can schedule a time, or get you your size and everything that you need, and then we can meet up.
Okay, great. Yeah, because we live in Albuquerque now. We're not moving to the property till after winter.
Yes.
So
Well, remember I told you I didn't mind the country out there where I was at, but I'm more for the warm. I'm a summertime person, so I want to move more south than I do in the east. Because man, the mountains ain't no joke when it snows.
Yeah.
yeah, they get cold. Yeah, we're wondering what we're doing, but oh well. Oh yeah. But it's so good to see you, Mitch. So good to see you.
You too. I guess I didn't recognize you guys until you mentioned that. I'm like, wait a minute.
And there's David.
You guys are doing good. Praise the Most High.
Praise the Most High. Yeah, he's so awesome. He's so loving to us. He endures our sins and our stupidity and our dumbness, but he always hears our repentance. And he says, he's still working with us because we love him. As long as we love him, he'll always work with us. Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. But yeah, I'm in the process of looking. I don't know. I guess I'm in between living in the city again or in the land. Like right now, I'm in the city. But I've learned a lot since I came into Torah. That it's not commanded to live in. That you have to live in the country, but
it's not.
It's a nice choice. But I am looking for land though. There's a land that they're selling 10 acres of land right now. But I have to talk to the guy tomorrow and see if I can work a deal with him with the 10 acres. Which would be interesting, to invite other people to come dwell and live on there and grow it. Yeah. That will be done.
Yeah. There's a lot of believers, we know single sisters that are praying for some place to go. It's just, we're in the last days and we need each other. And especially if we can live close to each other, we need each other to fellowship, to cry on, to pray with, to pray for. Yeah. So Yahuwah will definitely, or Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yahweh. I think you say Yahweh. I'm not sure.
It don't matter. I don't argue about the name. Whatever he gives you to call him.
Right. But he's going to Baruch us because we love our brothers and sisters. And so if you want to buy the property and you want to help other brothers and sisters out, that's what they did in the first century. That they helped each other out in the first century. And he's going back to that. Ecclesiastes 1:9, nothing new under the sun. And they weren't big congregations. They weren't churches. They were ecclesias, which is a small home congregation. And so that's what he had in the first century. He's going to have that again in ours.
Yes. Like as you see in Torah, most of all the people, the tribes live together around the tabernacle. So they're all their neighbors and they all got along. And the majority of the time, I'm pretty sure they had some brother and sister fights back then, like we do now. But yeah, like you said, that's always been my vision. I've always wanted to build a community. I just don't know how to go about it correctly yet, and I'm learning each day as he gives me more knowledge and understanding to do so. And in time, when it's His will be done. When
Right.
it's ready.
The timing is always His timing, always.
It sure is.
So yeah, please add me on Facebook because I usually post between 5 or 2 hours ahead. I try to give people notice as to when we're having these kinds of meetings. Made a post the other day stating that, I'm kind of addicted to this now. We all get together, we study scripture, I share and I'm learning things too. I don't know everything. So
Nobody does.
I'm constantly learning things and I've learned a lot through these meetings. And I've also been coming to some pretty cool stuff. Like today we were reading about the servant putting his hand under the thigh and swearing
Right.
it out.
Yeah.
And it suddenly occurred to me that, that's where Yaakov, that's where Yeshua was struck when he was wrestling with the messenger was the thigh. So what if swearing an oath by the thigh was actually acknowledging that Yah favors you according to the wrestling of Yaakov, which is something that I never heard before. So, out of these discussions, we're constantly learning things and growing in things. So, the more people like yourself that are sharing these things or the videos that are posted as a result of it, is the more that people are going to be growing in the knowledge of God the Torah. And that is last a prophecy. Yah said that he would cause his people in their exile to confess the crookednesses of their fathers, the crookedness of their forefathers of all of Israel, and to come and return back to Yah and the Torah, to keep his laws and his commands. So it's exciting to be a part of that. It's exciting for each of us to realize that we are a crucial part of Yah's plan to be taking broken people, or perfect people for that matter, back to Yah and the Torah. Yeah.
Yep.
Brother Saul, would you want me to give my testimony now or you want to wait till tomorrow?
Well, I don't think we've got a whole lot of time. These meetings are now limited to 40 minutes each
Oh, wow.
recording. So I've got to be careful to watch my time from now on to stay within that 40-minute recording.
Okay.
And like I said, it might take me some effort. I might be able to join the videos. Combine one video to the other video, or like say an 80-minute video instead of a 40-minute, but that's going to take some work and I'm not exactly sure. So I might just limit things to 40 minutes from now on.
Okay.
The timer.
I think that's a good idea because, it just leaves more room for more debates and discussions to be held rather than trying to pack them all in a 2-hour video.
For sure.
Do they charge more after you go over 40 minutes?
They
Yeah.
do.
If you want longer than 40 minutes, you have to upgrade the premium. So
How much they charge?
well, this is what I was asking Estrella, is that we have to talk about this as to do we want to upgrade or not. If we all pitched in, then maybe it would be worth it. But
Yeah.
I haven't clicked on it. I haven't pursued it yet. But if you guys want me to go ahead and click on it and see how much they're charging and whether it's worth it for us to do that, it's up to you.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
17, it's less than $18 because we pay for Zoom once a month. It's less than $18.
Oh, okay.
And
That's not too bad.
what we learned, brother, is they'll let you free for 40 minutes. You go off and then you automatically get right back on for another 40 minutes. It's free. We did that for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can join the videos or?
We never join videos.
We don't bother recording or anything like that, but just to have the meeting where we can get together and talk with multiple people for longer than 40 minutes, we just go to the 40 minutes, they'll kick you out, and then the person restarts it and everyone just joins back in and continue on their way.
Right. Yeah. It breaks up your recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
First time doing that tonight. So,
Yeah. So you want to stay free, you can do that. You just have everybody get right back in.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. Okay, yeah, like I said, add me on Facebook so that I have you can see when we're having meetings or not, and whether it's convenient to you or not. You know, feel free to let me know. Should I change the time, or do you want to meet at a different time? It's fine too. I'm open to working with things, but check out the previous videos that we've done, because Australia and Pete and Mitch and myself, we've been doing this for a bit. The last topic we did, which I really enjoyed, I thought it was great, was on sex and marriage, pornography, divorce, and polygamy. So
Good one.
each one of those could probably be a 1 hour lecture at least, but I put them all in one just to give people a perspective on what does scripture say about the family unit as a whole in terms of marriage and sex and and all that stuff. So it's actually become probably my most popular video in the last 2 weeks. I was surprised.
Good.
And I think that's because it's crucial to our life,
Yes.
and no one really wants to talk about it.
Right.
Everyone wants to talk about is Jesus the Messiah or argue theology or whatever, and it's like, when are we going to address what the Torah says about our lives?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
Yeah. Again, feel free to message me what you would like to talk about, what's on your mind, if you have questions or whatever. That goes to anyone who's watching this video in the future, or for those that are present now. Again, we want to be dealing with people's questions on how to understand scripture, how to apply scripture to our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So again, thank you for participating in tonight's recording. Again, I hope that I've stayed within the context of Isaiah 7 to chapter 10. And I hope that it's helpful for people to realize that the New Testament has taken 4 words out of a 4-chapter prophecy and misapplied it, and contextually speaking, did not stay within context, and so on and so forth. We've got like 5 minutes left, so if there's anything you want to ask before we close our meeting.
You said, brother, Isaiah chapter 7?
That's the context of chapter 9, yes, because chapter 7, we've got King Akhez, King Ahaz. He's afraid that these 2 kings are coming against him. They're going to destroy Israel.
Right.
Chapter 9 is about the wrath and anger of Yah, that yes, you are going to be hit hard by the rod and staff of Assyria, by Asher. Chapter 10 is Yah flipping the tables and saying, hey, I'm gonna punish Asher, punish Assyria, for punishing you.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting dynamic when you look at chapter 7 through 10.
Yeah. Well, he uses the nations to punish Israel, but if the nations take it to a degree that he didn't allow them to do it, then he turns around and punishes the nations for going overboard.
Right. And there's only so far that they can go.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Yep. The funny thing about the whole theme is that Yah punishes them to teach them. They don't learn.
Right.
And then he punishes the people that are oppressing them, and then they learn.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now you're ready to come to my laws and my commandments. Finally.
Yep.
So let that be a lesson to anyone who's watching, that if you're not following his commandments, be prepared to be humbled. And don't wait to be humbled before you realize you need to return to his commandments. This is a cycle that's been happening since the beginning of the Torah, since the beginning of time,
Mhm.
and people are so dumb that they just don't get it. Make yourself right with Yah before he has to humble you.
Mhm.
Return,
Oh yeah.
return to the Torah.
Because when Yahuwah spanks, it hurts.
Yeah, I've been humbled. I've been humbled a lot in my life. You know?
I think we all have.
I've had
I
enough.
agree.
I've had enough.
It just the spankings get a little bit lighter each time you get better. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we'll close up our recording for now. Yah be with you, and with anyone who watches this video in the future. Keep an eye open. I will be posting it on YouTube and so forth. Shalom.
Shalom.